President Trump at 6 months in office. Hunter Biden speaks, and he has got a lot to say, including why Joe Biden did so poorly in that infamous June debate. The latest on Jeffrey Epstein, the cancellation of Colbert, that and so much more today on 10 Minute Drill.
Everybody get up, get up.
The story of America is the story of an adventure.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
We are a nation under God, and I believe God intended for us to be free.
President Trump has just surpassed 6 months in his second term, and it has been a busy 6 months. Passed the big beautiful bill, rescissions package cutting back on so much government waste, DOGE highlights, making its mark at NATO with America's allies, successfully striking Iran's nuclear program off the earth, inflation improvements, taking on common sense issues like protecting women's sports, making government work better, energy regulatory reform, making communities safer by enforcing our immigration laws, and so much more. According to the Real Clear Politics average, his approval rating right now is 6 points higher than it was at this point in 2017. We constantly talk about how this is a different term than his first term in office, and it's a different political climate than during his first term in office. To note, Joe Biden in his first term, or his only term, was slightly higher than this in approval ratings, but 1 month later was the fall of Afghanistan, and after that point, President Biden's approval rating never recovered to where President Trump's approval is now. The New York Times had a new report over the weekend about a 2024 Democrat autopsy missing some pretty important things. Democrats' 2024 autopsy is described as avoiding the likeliest cause of death. An audit being conducted by the DNC is not looking at Joe Biden's decision to run or key decisions by Kamala Harris's team, according to 6 people briefed on the report. You have to wonder what the purpose of an autopsy is if they're ignoring the biggest questions about what happened in 2024. President Biden deciding to run and then pulling a late switcheroo to Kamala Harris was one of the most historic, monumental moments of this campaign. There's a lot of different reasons that campaign failed, but ignoring that is a giant, giant, giant red flag to this autopsy before it begins. But with that, Hunter Biden speaks, and I don't know that Democrats are necessarily going to appreciate what he has to say. First, we're going to show you a clip of that. Now, this is a family show, so we're going to do our best to clean this up.
You, what do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country?
Hunter takes on George Clooney, James Carville, David Axelrod, the Pod Save America former Obama aides, Anita Dunn, Rahm Emanuel, Jake Tapper. And he also explained why Joe Biden performed so poorly in that 2024 debate.
I know exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times. Yeah. He's 81 years old. He's tired as They give him AMBIEN to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
I think we're going to get a lot more questions about Joe Biden and AMBIEN and how it might have impacted his presidency. But I have to imagine Democrats are not thrilled to see this. As they try and move on, every Democrat on TV is talking about how they're trying to move on to the next chapter, put the past behind them. Here comes Hunter Biden on a mysterious YouTube channel called Channel 5. It does have over 1 million followers, but a quirky place for him to go out and sort of lay out all the axes the Biden family has to grind. I can only hope this will not be the end of the Hunter Biden axe grinding media tour. Last week, late-night host Stephen Colbert announced that his show is being canceled at the end of the next season. Democrats were not happy about it.
Colbert is such an outspoken Trump critic. He's just back from vacation, and as he showed there on Monday, on his first night back from vacation, he's also a thorn in his parent company's side. So this looks to a lot of Colbert's fans like another form of capitulation by CBS to the President of the United States.
One theme in the Democrats' meltdown over this news was the fact that Colbert always, quote, spoke truth to power. But here's what it looks like when Stephen Colbert speaks truth to power. And while this wasn't the reason for his cancellation, it's hard to miss that he had gotten significantly more political. Here's his reaction to President Trump's election.
No other candidate for the presidency has ever had to pause his campaign to defend himself in multiple courts. And I would like to point out that in all 7 of his cases, no one doubts that he did these things. We're just sitting around patiently waiting to find out if the wheels of justice will grind fast enough for there to be any consequences. And the media is covering it like it's any other political story, like it's all horse race.
Some on the left have suggested this cancellation is about silencing opposition to President Trump. But first, he was making around $20 million a year while reportedly losing around $40 million a year. The average age of his viewership went from 60 years old to 68 years old. But also, as wise man Keith Olbermann said, sorry, that's not what happened here. If it had, they wouldn't be keeping him on until next May. We wish Stephen Colbert all the best as he auditions for an open seat on The View, where his political views will make a lot more sense. Over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of discussion about Jeffrey Epstein and the files and records about both his criminal activities and the years of sordid relationships that he had. Last week, President Trump called on the Department of Justice to release grand jury testimony and any more information they might have. One challenge for the administration here is members of the Trump administration had hyped this quite a bit and talked about the importance of transparency, and now they're telling us there's not much more record and detail to be transparent about. Now, that will be a challenge for some people, but no one is taking media and Democrats seriously on this issue, particularly after the last 4 years where they avoided this topic like the plague and have only gotten interested because they see it as an opportunity to potentially hurt President Trump and drive a wedge with Republicans. But as polling last week in the thick of this highlighted, Trump's Republican base is not going anywhere.
All of these complaints online going after Trump and the Epstein files, you might think his approval ratings were going down with Republicans. If anything, they're going up. Republicans who approve of Trump, look at our CNN poll. The prior one, 86%. The one out this week, 88% were Republicans. How about Quinnipiac? The prior poll, 87% approve of Republicans. This week out, 90% with Republicans.
So again, President Trump's approval rating among Republicans and MAGA Republicans is going up despite this issue, in large part because he's coming off one of the most successful months of his presidency at the end of 6 months of, so far, an incredibly successful presidency. Look again at those accomplishments. Yesterday morning, New York Post broke a story. Pete Buttigieg's DOT spent $80 billion on DEI grants, delayed air traffic control upgrades, records industry insiders. So again, one thing that Pete Buttigieg is famous for, both as transportation secretary and as small town mayor before that, is accomplishing nothing but focusing very heavily on artificial things. You'll remember Joe Biden had an ad against him in the 2020 primary, making fun of him for accomplishing nothing but installing twinkly lights under bridges.
Joe Biden helped lead the passage of the Affordable Care Act, which gave healthcare to 20 million people. And when parkgoers called on Pete Buttigieg, he installed decorative lights under bridges, giving citizens of South Bend colorfully illuminated rivers.
So as the New York Post reports, Buttigieg put more priority on DEI requirements and promoting DEI through grants than he did on fixing our air traffic control system and so much of our transit. You need to read that article in the New York Post. But with that, today we're going to talk about our 3 other favorite things Pete Buttigieg did. First, you'll remember there's been a lot of coverage about the challenges the Biden administration had installing EV chargers, electric vehicle chargers around the country. They spent $10 billion and after about 3 years had only built about 7 of them. One of the reasons for that we've talked about here is the absurd requirements for things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. For example, you were required to hold a multicultural neighborhood block party in order to qualify to build one of the EV charging stations funded by the federal government. So that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. Number 2, pretending to bike to meetings. Early in his term as transportation secretary, Buttigieg was caught taking his bike out of the back of his Secret Service vehicle to pretend he had ridden to the meeting and walk up with his bike and helmet. It was absurd, but felt very much like the classic thing our friend Mayor Pete would do. Number 3, flight logs revealed that Pete Buttigieg had a love for private jet travel funded by taxpayers. So again, while he was tasked with fixing our transportation around America, including multiple crises involving air traffic and airlines being overflooded and lots of cancellations, Pete himself was avoiding those challenges by flying private and having us pay for it. Good luck running for president. We talked about a recent Senate hearing where Senator Ted Cruz highlighted a group in America, the Climate Judiciary Project, that had taken funding directly from the Chinese Communist Party to work with American climate activists to try and hurt American energy. Last week, Fox News had a bombshell story highlighting secret communication between judges and this group as they coordinated how to destroy the American energy industry again at the demand of the Chinese Communist Party. One of the efforts CJP launched included rolling out an email-styled listserv by which leaders from the Climate Judiciary Project could message directly with judges, documents obtained by Fox News Digital show. The listserv was launched in September 2022 and maintained until May 2024. In one communication, a Delaware judge shared a video from a conference, a private conference, where they had discussed bankrupting the fuel industry. And with that video, he had a note that said, "Please do not forward." And he added, "The powers that be will be happy that he said that." Who are the powers that be? We have one main idea. This is only going to get worse as we find out more and more what the Chinese Communist Party had these useful idiot American climate groups do to try and bankrupt one of our most important industries. That is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us for 10 Minute Drill. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends. Have a nice day.